What is up, everybody? It's the Vish Kumaran show. I'm Vish Kumaran, and I'm live reacting to the 49ers 22-16 victory over the Los Angeles Chargers. Pretty important win when you talk about, the long-term overall playoff standings of the 49ers. Obviously, they're now tied at the top of the NFC West, and they do hold that half-game tiebreaker lead over Seattle thanks to their division slash head-to-head record. Um, and then also they're finally over 500 for the first time in a few weeks, which is also massive. I am going to get into my reaction of this game. As always, I'm going to go offense, defense, special teams, Shanahan, and then take your questions. I think when I go through this, just to organize my thoughts even better, I'm going to go position by position on offense, position by position on defense. Talk a little bit about the special teams because there were some massive miscues in this game, and then ultimately talk about Shanahan. My reaction to this game in general, before I get into the details, it is a little bit mixed. I'm obviously glad that the 49ers won from a fan standpoint, and any win in the NFL is a good win. It's hard to win in the NFL week in and week out. Every team is pretty good in certain type of ways. Every team has talent. My audio is not working. Is this the case for everyone? All right, let me know in the comments if there's some audio issues, but it doesn't seem to be. Uh, is he the only person? Is Roy's Place the only person having the audio issue? It's fine. Okay, I can hear you. Roy's Space, you're gonna have to. Roy's Place, excuse me. You're gonna have to maybe load back into this page. But anyway, what I wanted to say is that wow, Roy's Place, you really made me lose my spot. That's not very nice of you. No, I'm joking. But what I meant to say originally, before all of that little mumbo jumbo with the audio going out or not going out, is that I wasn't overly impressed by this victory. Yes, the win's a win, and I'm going to talk about some of those reasons why. But at the end of the day, this was a win at home, coming off a bye against a team that was missing basically its entire receiving core and missing half of its defensive line. I do think that it should have been a much more smooth victory. But at the same time, a victory is a victory. So let's get into the actual details of this. I'm struggling to talk right now, so this is great. So let's talk about something that I can actually maybe have something interesting to talk about. Let's talk about what the Niners offense did in this game, right? A lot of long drives, a lot of field goals in this game. Let's talk about the quarterback. I thought Garoppolo was terrific in this game. I thought this was the second straight game in a row that he played very well. And I think very well for Jimmy Garoppolo can be what he did today. He was exceptionally efficient. He was very accurate. He took care of the football. And he made a few plays in this game that really changed the landscape of this game, right? If you look at his numbers, it's very solid. 19 for 28, 240 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. But if you really get into what he did, I do think that he made a few plays that really changed the landscape of this game. For example, that first drive that they scored the Christian McCaffrey touchdown, right? You get into 3rd and 12, momentum is kind of going. Things aren't really going the Niners' way, right? At that point, the score was, I want to say it was 13 to 3 at that point. Yeah, so it was 13 to 3 right before that touchdown drive, right? And a couple of negative plays, you get them in 3rd and 12. Garoppolo makes a great throw to Kittle, gets the first down. Then he makes an off schedule to Ray McLeod, one of the better throws I think we've ever seen Garoppolo make. That was a big time play. Then he swings it out to McCaffrey, and then McCaffrey closes the drive with a 1-yard touchdown run. I thought that drive was all Jimmy Garoppolo. McCaffrey scored, but it was all Jimmy Garoppolo. And then he had a couple of plays where, they got into second and 20 because of a bad holding call. He hits Juwan Jennings on a little seam route or a little glance route, and then he comes back and hits Juwan Jennings on an out for the first down. I want to say, no, he might have hit him on a little stick route. Either way, he hits Juwan Jennings on 2 consecutive plays first down. Then, another third down, you get zero coverage. He hits Brandon Ayuk. I thought Garoppolo was really outstanding in this game. He took care of the football, which was good, but there were so many little plays in this game where he really came through. He was the one that kept coming through for the 49ers offense. And it's something you haven't been able to say about him in the past, but I would say, here we are through 8 weeks in the season, 9 weeks in the season, and he's had a very good season so far. Outside of that Broncos game, which was disgusting, Garoppolo has played probably this is as good a stretch as he's had in his 49ers career. Now, that stretch in 2019, the second half of the season was pretty freaking good too. So it's tough to just say this is the best, but he is playing some of the better football in his career. So yeah, I do think Garoppolo has been playing terrific, and I think that he played outstanding in this game. Again, I don't think the numbers completely reflect how well he played, because I think there were a couple of plays in this game that he himself individually went out and made a few plays that we're not accustomed to seeing from him. And those plays really made a difference, I think, in the landscape of this game. So those are my short thoughts on Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's get into the running backs. The star of this game for the 49ers on offense, aside from Garoppolo, and maybe if you want to put Ayuk in front of him, we'll get to Ayuk, was Elijah Mitchell. His return was huge. I mean, it was positive running after positive running. He is so tough. He runs so hard. He's fast. He's explosive. And he's just so physical. The guy just competes his butt off. The big only question you can have about Elijah Mitchell is how can his body hold up? But he was awesome in this game, I thought. I'm someone who was wrong about Elijah Mitchell. I didn't exactly love his skill set. And when I first was watching him, and I've come around to like it, he is a terrific football player. He makes the 49ers better. When do I seem mad? I'm not mad. Okay, that's really weird. But Elijah Mitchell makes the 49ers better, and ultimately I would also say that, the duo of him and Christian McCaffrey, so much potential it has to offer. It to me could be the best running back duo in the NFL if it's not already. It's a really, really special duo. And then McCaffrey, of course, he wasn't as good as he was against the Rams, but I thought he was once again quite good in this game. He ran tough. There was a lot of runs where, the Chargers were putting a lot of oh, my fault. I'm sorry. Sometimes I just see the comments as they come in. Sometimes I don't see them. And when they see them, I just try to keep the interaction up, obviously, because I enjoy the back and forth between me and then you guys in the comment section. But going back to the running backs, and I promise this will be the last little tangent I go on. We're 8 minutes in and I've taken 3 tangents that make no sense with the game. But I promise this is the last tangent I go on. So going back to the running backs, they both played well, and I thought Elijah Mitchell was the difference in this game, to be honest. I thought his return made a big difference. There was a little bit more speed and juice to the Niners offense. I know a lot of people are going to have the reaction Juan Z just had. Well, why did they trade for Christian McCaffrey? There's still so much value to Christian McCaffrey. It's just that Elijah Mitchell's a hell of a football player too. And you could feel a lot better about Elijah Mitchell if he stayed healthy. But unfortunately, at this point so far, he's not shown that his health can be something that can be relied upon. I touched on, I have suspicions about how his running style and his size equates to him and having to deal with those lower leg injuries. I don't know if that's true. That's just my theory. But ultimately, I do think that as a duo, it's the best duo of running backs in the NFL. Going into the wide receivers, I thought Brandon Ayuk was overall very, very good in this game. Obviously, he had a couple of big mental errors. One was the fumble, which I thought was kind of a tough play. It was a real tough catch over the middle. Garoppolo threw him a good ball. He snatched it with his hands, and he kind of turned himself into Derwin James, who got kind of a blindside shot on him. And I think he just startled him and he fumbled the ball. Tough play. You obviously don't expect Ayuk to make a play like that, but I thought it was just kind of a circumstantial, unlucky kind of play. Then you get to the drop in the end zone. I thought that was obviously, it's a tough play. Maybe that you could argue that ball was maybe, a couple inches behind him. It did hit him on his back shoulder, not his front shoulder. but he's got to make that catch. I thought that he should have caught that football, and it was really his one big blunder in the game, but he more than made up for it with, those two big third down catches. The one being against cover zero, Garoppolo hits him on kind of an over route in the red zone to put the ball at the 2 yard line. It's a great throw, great catch. Garoppolo is on the money getting hot versus cover zero, except against the Chiefs, apparently. Real good play from Garoppolo there. And then the other one where, he's running a little curl route, top of screen press coverage with Asante Samuel, and Garoppolo makes a great throw with anticipation, puts it right on him, and Ayuk is very physical at the top of his route, creates separation, does a great job snatching that ball with his hands and getting both feet in bounds. Terrific play. Moving on to Deebo Samuel. I thought Deebo Samuel was good in this game. I just didn't think he got opportunities. He caught a screen with 4 minutes left in the third quarter on 3rd and 20, whatever, and picked up like 17 yards. He had a couple of very explosive runs. His first run, that 7-yard gain, it looked like Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel looked healthy to me. I don't know why it felt like the offense was so CMC Mitchell, where we're going to run the ball and then quick game with Ayuk heavy. I don't know why that. I thought maybe there would be a bigger effort to get Deebo the ball. I don't know maybe if he's still hurt or, what the deal was, but I thought Deebo looked good. I know a lot of people don't think Deebo has looked as good this year. I said in the Carolina game, I didn't think he played well. And then I thought maybe he might have been banged up in the Atlanta and Kansas City game. It didn't look like Deebo Samuel to me. I said that. Today, I thought he looked like Deebo Samuel to me. So I know there are people who think that he's not looking like Deebo Samuel, but to me, he looked like Deebo Samuel today. I'll get a better idea when I get to go watch the game back tomorrow, but I thought there was the juice that we're used to seeing from Deebo Samuel today. And then the third guy with the receivers I want to point out is Juwan Jennings. He had only 4 catches for 40 yards, but I thought he was awesome in this game. Few big third down catches. He had that big third down where, Garoppolo threw him a ball 2 yards short of the sticks. He made a guy miss and then finished the play with some physical running. The guy always comes through. He's tough. He's reliable. He is one of the more underrated good players on this Niners offense. I don't think we talk about him enough. But whenever he gets an opportunity, he comes through. It's something you can say about a lot of players on this Niners offense, but I do think Juwan Jennings deserves major props for how well he played today. Finally, we got to touch on the tight ends and the offensive line, and then we got our review of the Niners offense done. The tight ends, obviously, Kittle had 1 catch. He was, as always, very good in the run game. He is always very good in the run game. I do think, it would be nice to see a little bit more Kittle in the pass game. Sometimes I wonder, a lot of the bread and butter of the Niners offense, for example, if you watch Seattle this year, they probably run this play 10 times. It's play action. Geno rolls out, and you just slide the tight end through the backside of the formation, and Geno dumps it off to the tight end, and the tight end picks up 10 yards. They ran that play, I think when they blew out the Chargers, I want to say they might have run that play maybe 10 or 12 times. But Seattle's been running that play. Shanahan, they were used to run that play a lot. I don't see like any really plays for Kittle besides in that opening script against Carolina. Now, there are plays for Kittle over the course of the game, but it definitely feels like he is an afterthought at this point in the offense compared to Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, even Deebo Samuel still, I would say, and even Elijah Mitchell. I think good things still happen when you get George Kittle the ball. I'm not really alarmed. I talked about at the beginning of the season. I thought he would be a bigger part of this offense. I thought it was just the injury. That's why he wasn't getting the ball early. I'm starting to feel a little bit more concerned now, but I'm still not that concerned. He's still George Kittle. He still looks every bit like the best tight end in the NFL to me. So I would lead that conversation as that. Finally, let's talk about, the 49ers offensive line. Thought they actually had a pretty decent game overall. A lot of plays with really good pass protection. I thought Trent Williams was awesome in this game. Great in the run game, great in the pass game. He's a great player. Aaron Banks, I didn't hear his name in this game, but, usually when you don't hear an offensive lineman mentioned, that's a good thing. I thought he played well too. It's really tough to watch the game on TV and be sure how offensive linemen play. Jake Brendel had that one rough holding penalty, but I also thought, he was solid. Burford Brunskill, again, I thought was fine. And then we get to McGlinchey, who's, of course, everybody's favorite talking point after games. Look, he had a rough game. Again, he also had a lot of positive plays, as he always does. He had some rough plays, as he does. I would say that Khalil Mack is a tough matchup for anybody. He's definitely a tough matchup for Mike McGlinchey. Mike McGlinchey isn't the kind of player that's going to pitch a shutout against Khalil Mack. That's just unreasonable to me. That's like getting mad at, Diamador Lenore for not guarding Cooper Kupp if you put him in Cooper Kupp. If you put him one-on-one on Cooper Kupp, 8 times in a game and Cooper Kupp catches 5 balls. Horrible analogy, but the point is that I think that, it was always going to be a tough game for McGlinchey versus Khalil Mack. He's just one of the best defensive players in the NFL. He's become underrated to me. I don't know why, when we're talking about the best defensive edge players in the NFL, the conversation is just the Bosa brothers, Watt and Garrett. I don't know why, and of course Micah Parsons, but he's also an off-ball linebacker. I don't know why Khalil Mack isn't part of that conversation. He is still an elite player versus the run. He sets the edge as well as anyone, and then he still rushes the passer at a very high level. He's a supremely good player. It's tough for me to sit here and tell you, hey, I'm really upset with how Mike McGlinchey played, because he was struggling with one of the best defensive players in the NFL. And I wouldn't say he completely struggled. He had some, poor plays, but he also had a few positive reps, as he always does. Before I get to the 49ers defense, I did want to touch on this comment from Jagoyo 56. Again, as always, really appreciate the donation. Any contribution goes a long way. And he said, Vish, we won. Jimmy G plays a clean game and we can win. Yeah, we won. I think this game went beyond a clean game, right? When I think clean game for a quarterback, I just think they didn't make mistakes. I thought Garoppolo didn't only make mistakes in this game. He made a lot of meaningful plays in this game that went towards the result. I thought, really top to bottom. Of course, Nick Bosa and Trent Williams and Fred Warner will always be in this conversation. And they probably deserve to be because they play well in every game. They play great in every game, but really, I think you could argue Garoppolo was one of the 49ers' best players in this game, if not their best player. He played a great game, start to finish. He didn't make any mistakes. I can't remember one ball being put in harm's way. I thought he was terrific at managing the pocket. I thought he made great decisions. I thought he threw the ball very accurately. I thought it was more than just a clean game. I thought he played really well, and it's, 2 games in a row. That's a real positive that I'm coming out here and saying, I think this is as good a 2-game stretch as I've seen Garoppolo play in his career. Now, he's had other 2-game stretches that he's played really well. I'm not going to say it's the best, but in terms of just playing clean, efficient, playing really well, right now he's on a roll, and that's a really, really positive thing for the Niners. Permaculture now, excuse me. I read that as premature now for some reason. Vish, a suggestion. Put a poll asking people to hit the like button or not. Makes an big impact on the vote to viewer ratio. Why did I bring this comment up? It's quite simple, guys. We got 236 people in here. Smash that like button. It does go a long way. And put down in the comments below, what made you most excited about the 49ers victory? And let us continue with the show. We got to talk 49ers defense, right? Let's start with the defensive line. I'm getting a little concerned with the 49ers defensive line. Not concerned about their play. I think they're a fantastic unit. And I think they once again played really, really well in this game. Again, they're going up against an offensive line that, of course, has some backups playing. Other than the Chargers' right tackle, who was allowed to jump, basically, I thought he false started maybe 10 times in this game. He every play he was getting to his kick step and getting that right foot behind, has split second before the snap, and it was not called once. Don't get me started on that. But my worry with the Niners defensive line is the attrition. Charles Omenihu was banged up in this game. We don't know what's going on with Eric Armstead. I still think the Niners miss him heavily. Of course, Samson Ebukam was out in this game as well. There's been a few injuries that make me worried. In terms of the play, it's a terrific unit. Every player that plays contributes. That's really the thing that stands out. I thought one guy that flashed today in my mind was Jordan Willis. I thought he came back and played very well. I also thought Charles Omenihu played well. Nick Bosa's obviously he plays well in every game, and he came through in big moments in this game. He had a red zone sack that really changed the game, that forced the Chargers to kick a field goal. Right after the Ayuk fumble, I want to say he had a sack on second down, or I might be mixing up the timeline. It might have been the subsequent drive where Nick Bosa had a sack. Yes, Nick Bosa had a red zone sack. The Ayuk drive, I think, stalled around right after the Ayuk fumble, stalled around the 30-yard line or so. Either way, the point is, I think the Niners defensive line played very well in this game. If there's one worry, it is the attrition, right? It is the attrition. The number of injuries are starting to add up. We're talking about a lot of very good players that are getting injured. Ultimately, we'll have to see, how they manage that moving forward. Which brings me to the 49ers linebackers. Fred Warner was outstanding in this game. He was fast, physical. He was everything that, what the best linebacker in the NFL should look like. He was flying around. He was terrific in coverage as he always is. He's Fred Warner, one of the best linebackers in the NFL. And I could go on and on about him, but I do have to talk about, the controversial thing that happened with Dre Greenlaw. That was BS. Dre Greenlaw should not have been ejected from this game. I didn't understand the call. I didn't understand the rule. I didn't really understand what was going on. Next thing I know, he's ejected. I do think having Al-Shaair healthy for this game was big. I did see Oren Burks have to come in there a little bit as well. But the Dre Greenlaw thing was BS. Greenlaw had that one whiff in coverage on that first third down, but otherwise he was looking real good. Every bit as fast and physical as he's looked all season. And he was creating an impact. And I don't understand why. Someone's going to have to explain this one to me. I don't understand the rule. He's a runner at that point. He ricochets into two people, and then, Greenlaw inadvertently kind of smacks him with the crown of his helmet. But I wish I had something more to say. I don't know what to tell you. That make no sense to me. Tough for Greenlaw. If he gets fined, it's BS. If he gets suspended, it's the crime of the century by the NFL. He shouldn't even have been ejected from this game. I don't even think it should have been a penalty, though I understand why you would throw that flag. So that would be my take on what happened with Greenlaw. Again, I'm not a big referee guy. I think anybody who's seen me stream on YouTube, I never talk about the referees. But they really bothered me in this game. First you got Terry McAuley talking about Sam Womack, who gets pushed into the end zone after coming to a full stop. The play is dead. The ball is spotted at the 1-yard line, saying it's a touchback and all of that. And maybe by rule it's a touchback, but seemed like a senseless conversation to have, let alone push that narrative. Then, of course, you have, the Chargers right tackle just false starting ad nauseum. Every play, it's his kick step is just kicking a split second before the snap, and nobody really cares about it. And then finally, you had this Greenlaw play that put me over the edge. Again, I'm not a big referee guy, but man, you got to – how am I not supposed to talk about that? Which brings me to the 49ers secondary, right? The third level of this defense. I thought they played very well in this game, given the injuries. They were fast, physical, aggressive. They were playing a very compromised Chargers pass attack, who were coming in without their two best maybe Eckler, without their two best receivers in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Then they lost Gerald Everett also early in this game, which made a massive impact. All that being said, I thought the secondary played really well. Besides that one coverage bust on that first touchdown to DeAndre Carter by Talanoa Hufanga, I know a lot of people saw him pointing inside I want to say he was pointing inside to Tashawn Gibson. The Niners were in Reno coverage on that play, and basically Hufanga's assignment is it's man if the guy goes vertical and outside. If he releases inside, then he lets the man go, and Gibson's got him in man. He released vertically, so Hufanga should have had him in man. I don't exactly know what happened. It was just a mistake. But besides that, I thought the Niners secondary played well. But again, it's hard for me to have a conversation about them playing well when, the Chargers are missing Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Gerald Everett. And so that's where I'm going to get to the second part of what I'm going to talk about with this game. And it's going to start when I start talking about the Niners special teams. But Eddie Avila previews it. It's what I talked about at the beginning. Did we watch the same game? We played horrible. The Chargers were down their two best receivers, their best defensive player, and barely won. They also lost multiple defensive linemen in this game. Absolutely nothing down the field. And yes, this is the point that I do want to get to, right? Because I think the underlying point is we went through position by position. Overall, the Niners kind of had a good game, quote unquote. Individuals played well, but in terms of a team, it's tough to win in the NFL. Obviously, you're glad anytime you can win. But there were a few things that I thought were rather alarming. And it starts with the Niners special teams, right? What's the issue with this? You spend money on Oren Burks, George Odom, and Ray McLeod, right? Great. You get three guys on special teams. They've had a blocked field goal this year. They've had a blocked punt this year. These protection issues, these issues, blocking for your kicker, blocking for your punter shouldn't happen. These are negative plays on special teams that you lose possessions. It shouldn't happen. I don't know why it's happening. Niners made a big deal about it too. Did you see? We spent a lot of money this free agency. We thought special teams was the issue. The special teams issue has not been fixed. The new coordinator has not fixed the issue, and the new personnel has not fixed the issue. That is concerning to me. Then let alone Robbie Gould missed that extra point that would have really iced the game, right? The Niners ended up going on to completely ice the game, but that extra point going in would have put them, a touchdown, put them in a touchdown lead and really in the driver's seat. And, Robbie Gould hasn't been as sharp this year. He's still Robbie Gould. I do think he'll turn it around through the second half of the season. But, he's a guy who's, 41, 42 years old. He's, on the last year of his contract. There's some rumors maybe about him retiring. So I do think that there's the Niners special teams is just flat out an issue at this point. Which leads me finally to, I guess I'll take David Velaz's question first. He said, I would like to see the 49ers play better against the Chargers scout team. This is as good as Jimmy G will ever play. I don't know if we could say that second part about Jimmy G because he's played very well now 2 games in a row. And he did have a good stretch in 2019, that second half of the season where he played well. But I do agree with you. Coming off the bye at home, I didn't think this game needed to be that much of a struggle. There were too many issues with, field goals in the red zone, right? 2 massive drives, right? The Niners had in total 2 drives, one that was 14 plays, 67 yards, that they had the ball for 7 minutes and 25 seconds, and that led to a field goal. Then they had a 9-minute, 75-yard drive that led to a touchdown. That was the drive where Garoppolo made the big throw on 3rd and 12, then the off schedule to Ray McLeod. Then they started the half with a 12-play, 67-yard drive that took 6 minutes and 7 seconds, which ultimately also led to a field goal. I thought those were big turning points in the game. The Ayuk fumble was a big turning point in the game. The Ayuk drop. There was too many execution errors that remain with the 49ers. I thought a lot of this game looked similar to some of the other games that they have played against teams that they're better than before. I thought the massive advantage was the Chargers offense was kind of in hell in this game. The Niners had a good plan for Eckler. The Chargers couldn't really run the ball. They got a lot of pressure on Herbert, and the Chargers receivers outside, especially with Everett hurt, and then obviously Keenan Allen and Mike Williams out before the game, are not very good. And so I thought that was a massive advantage. And then the Chargers defensive line, They came into this game with a lot of injuries to their defensive line, right? We know about Joey Bosa, but there's also some attrition to the interior of their defensive line. And then you add to that, they lost two different guys in this game in Christian Covington. Um, and they lost somebody else. I think they lost number 93. I'm blanking on his name, excuse me. But they lost two different defensive linemen in this game as well, with an already weak run defense. So it really played into the Niners' hands. This really should have been a substantial victory. At the end of the day, a victory is a victory, like I said. But this team still has more questions than answers to me at this point. I do think that they're starting to put it together. It's starting to look better. I think Garoppolo is playing very well. I think the talent's obvious, right? We can all see it. Oh, if this team gets it right, if everything flows on all cylinders, who's going to beat them, right? The weapons are incredible. The defense is so talented. They put pressure on the quarterback. They can block. There's so many things that are positive about this team, but the execution errors need to stop because those things are what keeps hurting this team. That's why they lost to Denver. That's why they lost to Chicago. That's why they lost to Atlanta. And I think that those things reared their ugly head again today. Now, the Niners were ultimately able to overcome them and win, which is huge. Winning in the NFL is hard. It's hard to do no matter how you do it. A win's a win. It shows up the same on the result. But I do think that, you would expect a better performance from a team at home coming off their bye that has the number of players returning that the Niners had today. I think you would expect them to play a cleaner football game and not have the mistakes they had. But there's always room to grow. And, that's the nice thing about the NFL. There's still 8 games left in this football season. So there's a lot of time for the Niners to get better and be ready for that stretch run going into the playoffs. I was going to talk about Kyle Shanahan next, but we got 260 people in here. And I figured that, a lot of the conversation when we get to questions is already about Shanahan. So I'm guessing my thoughts will come there. So I figured I would just take your questions. Now, I do have to mention the 260 people because, come on, guys, smash that like button. It goes a long way towards helping me out. I really appreciate all the support you guys give me. And of course, comment down below. Why are you happy that the Niners won? And what is that one thing that you think the Niners need to do and fix in order to be the team that we think they can be towards the rest of the season? But now I'm going to take some of your questions. I'm going to scroll through the chat and, see Yeah, Comrade Whisker says they had not two defensive linemen left active. They only had two defensive tackles. That interior of their defensive line got beaten up throughout the game. Now, credit to the 49ers too, right? Their commitment to running the football. I want to say they got. Actually, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to give you the stat straight up that they got 41 runs off in this game. You get 41 runs off against any team in the NFL, attrition is going to hit. That's an incredible performance. That is something actually I want to highlight. Getting 41 runs off in an NFL game is very impressive. It tells you how physical the Niners played. It tells you how committed they were to running the football, which should have been their plan, which was a smart thing. So, yes, I think that, the Niners definitely benefited from it, but I also think they created some of that attrition by how much they ran it. Gus the Bus asks, is Trent Williams better than Joe Staley? Look, all due respect to Joe Staley. He's a great 49er. He was a leader. He was a great personality. He played on a lot of good teams and a lot of bad teams. But yeah, I do think Trent Williams is just a better player than Joe Staley. It's just more talented than Joe Staley. I think Joe Staley was a great player, but Trent Williams to me is in the conversation with the best of the best in the history of football. We're talking about with, Jonathan Ogden, Walter Jones, Anthony Munoz, Trent Williams. His name fits right with those people to me. He's revolutionized the left tackle position. He made plays that, he makes blocks, plays that we haven't seen other tackles make before. Man, he's an incredible football player. I can't even describe it too well, to be honest. It's just one of those things when you watch it, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Roy Keith asks, what do you think of the green line ejection? I'm assuming this is going to be a popular question, which is why I answered it. I spoke about it earlier in the stream, but the spark notes of it is that I thought it was BS. It was total BS. I didn't understand it. Someone's going to have to explain it to me. It didn't make sense to even throw a flag on that play to me based on the rules, but I get it. Okay, throw the flag. It looked ugly. Justin Herbert, one of the future stars of the NFL, current and future stars of the NFL, took a nasty hit to the head. So I understand throwing that flag. Okay. I understand it. I don't like it, but I understand it. Ejecting him, someone much smarter than me is going to have to be able to understand that, because sorry, I don't get it. I've seen a couple people say this. I thought he threw the ball fairly accurately today. There were a couple, but I mean, not every throw can be, right on the money right there. The Niners pay their receivers a lot of money for a reason. Got to be able to make a few adjustments to the ball too. Juarez says, surprised Elijah Mitchell got so many touches. Could see Christian McCaffrey itching to get back in. No, look, at first, I don't think the plan was honestly to have it be such an even split with Mitchell ultimately getting more carries. Just thought Mitchell ran the ball better in this game. He was getting more in the run game today. That's just what happened. So I think they just rode the hot hand with him. He ran really, really hard. He ran so physical. He ran so tough. I thought he had a very good game. I didn't want to actually tweet about it or talk about it because the last time I talked about how good Elijah Mitchell looked, he got hurt like 2 minutes later, and this was during the Bears game week 1. I didn't want to be that jinx towards Elijah Mitchell. I feel a little safer talking about it now. He looks very good. He looks as explosive as he looked week 1, which is very positive to see. So Permaculture now asks an interesting question. When you are playing a lighter D-line package because of injuries, isn't it wise to run as much play action against that package? That is typically the unit that would be out against play action. Actually, I don't really understand what you're saying, Permaculture now. Sorry about that. Kyle Sullivan says, do you think the 49ers play worse after a bye week? No. They look like how the 49ers have looked every week this season besides against the Rams. Let's be honest. I guess the Carolina second half, they had that explosion, which was fantastic. They had a good first half against the Chiefs. Seattle, they played the game pretty well top to bottom. So in their 4 wins, really, you could say they've probably played well top to bottom. 4 wins prior to this game, obviously. I don't know if I would go that far. Maybe with Carolina, I thought it was a little dicey in between. But yeah, they played well. This game, they played well enough to win, which is the first positive. But a lot of the issues that I see seem to be, I don't even know what the fix is at this point. They just seem to remain consistent, if that makes sense. Like, all of us can sit here as fans and we can point out, like, there's just a few plays every game that the Niners don't make or they do make. And those plays really, let us know the result of the game. Today, I thought Garoppolo was the one who made those plays for the 49ers, which ultimately put them over the top in this game. Really, I go back to that 3rd and 12, right? The score is 13-3. You get into a 2nd and 12. You got a 3rd and 12, and the Niners, are out here to throw the ball, and Garoppolo makes a big throw to Kittle. And then he comes back and he makes the big throw to Ray McLeod, which I thought was a great play. I thought the game could have was teetering at that point, honestly. The Chargers had them at 3rd and 13. They'd kind of taken them out of the run game for a little bit there. The Chargers offense was also having success, and I thought he made a great throw on 3rd and 13. I thought that was a big play in terms of how momentum shifted within the game right there. I thought that was a big play. And then in terms of playing worse after the bye, going back to your question, I'm sorry I went on a slight tangent there. But in terms of playing worse after the bye, I would say no. It just all looks the same to me, and that's where I guess the win is a little bittersweet. Obviously, you're excited that they win, but I did expect maybe a little better, tighter performance coming off the bye that didn't look so similar so loose in terms of the way it's looked in the first 8 weeks, where there's a lot of mistakes made by the 49ers that are self-inflicted. Because I thought those self-inflicted errors like that is what made this game close, as it always does, which again is a very frustrating thing when it comes to the 49ers. But we will see. ET says just need to clean it up in the red zone. Yes, but when have they been clean in the red zone outside of 2020? They were good in the red zone, with Nick Mullins. Then 2021, they were actually quite good in the red zone as well. I thought that was a Debo Samuel running, which really changed their red zone offense in 2021. But the red zone hasn't been a very good place for Shanahan over the years in his career as a play caller. I mean, the statistics bear it out. It's not been a place, where his offenses have had a lot of success. And it struggled again today. I mean, again, you can't go on a 12-play, 67-yard drive that takes up 6 minutes, a 14-play, 75-yard drive that takes up 7 minutes, and only come up with 6 points. That's not a winning formula versus teams that have, their full receiving core, their full defensive line that actually have a little bit of an opportunity to compete. I thought the Chargers were very much a handicapped team coming into this game. Justin Herbert's a special player, and he changes margins, and he changed margins in this game. He made the game a lot closer by making a few special throws early in this game where, people around him, he's just an unbelievable thrower. He's just unbelievably polished within the pocket. He's an outstanding player, but definitely the 49ers need to clean it up in the red zone. I think it should be, honestly. Blind guy McSqueezy, asked the question: is scoring 30 points every week a realistic expectation for this offense? Yeah, I think it should be. You're talking about an offense with Debo Samuel, All Pro, George Kittle, All Pro, Brandon Ayuk, first round pick, Christian McCaffrey, All Pro, Kyle Juszczyk, All Pro, Trent Williams, All Pro. That's what, 7 All Pros, 6 All Pros? Yeah. 30 plus points is a reasonable expectation, I would say. Comrade Whiskers asks, where was JC Jackson? JC Jackson hurt his knee. He's out for the season. But of course, he didn't play well prior to this. The only reason I brought up this question too is because, I wanted to pat myself on the back. I said the 49ers shouldn't sign JC Jackson. I don't believe in any corner that leaves New England except for the Hall of Famers. So if you're Ty Law, if you're Stephon Gilmore, and you're Darrelle Revis, you will have success away from New England. But that's also because all three of you will have gold jacket, or Gilmore will have a gold jacket, so will Revis. And then, of course, Ty Law already has one. The other guys, Malcolm Butler, those type of guys, JC Jackson, good players within that system, but I've seen it too much with Belichick corners. Please throw in as many questions as you can in the chat. Obviously, I'm here just trying to get to them. I'm here for the conversation between us. We all are excited. The Niners won a big game on Sunday Night Football and are in first place in the division. Those two things remain exciting regardless of how it looked in terms of the win. I'm going to also look through. One thing I wanted to mention as well is, as always, please like, subscribe, share, comment down below. What was the one thing that you think the Niners need to do to, make that stretch run that we all believe they're capable of making? And then, just what did you like about the Niners victory? It goes a long way in towards helping me out. Appreciate every single one of your support. As always, we have so many people in here right now. It's so cool to me. So I appreciate all of your support. But yeah. You think so? Interesting. That's a tough one to me. Tyler DeHoff makes a great point. Yeah, Aaron Banks deserves a ton of credit. He's actually been maybe top to bottom the most consistent player on the 49ers offense this year, which is kind of shocking to say. He's played well every week. He's great in pass protection and he's good in the run game. He is a terrific football player. I think that, as the season continues, he got a slight shout out today for how well he's been playing, replacing Laken Tomlinson by Chris Collinsworth. Think as by the time the season ends, we're going to be talking about him, as maybe a possible Pro Bowl guard this year. And now that sounds like an outlandish statement now, but go look at, guard play across, Zach Martin will be one Pro Bowler for sure. He's maybe the best offensive lineman in the NFL. And I think he's nearing towards being in the conversation for the greatest guard we have ever seen, right? Zach Martin, 5-time first team All Pro, terrific football player. And then, of course, one of the Philly guards will take one of the spots. But besides that, I mean, I think Banks has played very well. He's played very clean. I think that he will be in that Pro Bowl conversation. I think it'll be interesting because, there were a lot of takes on Aaron Banks early that are proving to be wrong. And I think it's good for him that he's proven those things wrong. Faith and Hope Ministry Media asked a great question. Are you going to start to stream more during the week? It is the goal, right? I would like to stream, 2 to 3 times during the week. I personally love streaming, to be honest with you. I love getting on here. I love talking to all of you. You guys bring up great points, and I love the back and forth interaction. Sometimes it's just hard to fit within my schedule. I do have a few things that maybe take up my time and come before it. The last couple of weeks, I've been a little slow with the streaming because I've had a couple of things going on at work that have delayed me. That shouldn't be the case anymore. I will be streaming tomorrow, obviously, on the Niners Nation platform, my Monday show with Rob Guerrera that we've been doing over the last 3 or 4 weeks, under review with Stats or Vish. Shamelessly plug-in, but make sure you tune into that. It'll be on the Niners Nation YouTube channel, and you can also find it on Twitter on the Niners Nation Twitter, as well as on Twitch. I think it's Stats on Fire. That's Rob's Twitch, but he streams to there as well. And then I'm going to look to stream a couple more times during the week too. There's so many things to talk about with the Niners. I always feel like it's frustrating to me to not being able to talk about them as well. So I hope to get on as much as possible, to be honest. I love getting on here and streaming, and I love the interaction. And the interaction has been great today as well. Blue Heel says, Lenore looks good. I agree. I think Lenore is playing very well. He's playing aggressive. He's playing physical. He's definitely been a step up from the Niners backup corners a year ago. Obviously, losing Jason Verrett, that was a brutal thing. That was very sad to hear. I think any person that has any sort of human instinct felt really bad for Jason Verrett and what he's had to go through, the adversity he's had to go through. Then, of course, Emmanuel Moseley on a contract year, a guy who was, poised to get a lot of accolades and make a lot of money, also tearing his ACL was brutal. But Lenore is far and away much better than Josh Norman and Drake Kirkpatrick. I'll tell you that. So that's a huge positive for sure. Fernando Brasoli says, what would you do different if you were the coach of this offense? What do you think we're missing? I think the one thing that I would say the Niners offense is missing. Look, it's difficult to do things very differently. There's so much that goes into game planning, how you're going to set things up, how you sequence plays. I don't think people give enough credit to the difficulty of it. I hate personally the hindsight play call evaluation. It's so easy for me to sit here, in my room. I've got this room with no decorations, whatever, but I'm sitting here with the platform streaming to you. And it's so easy for me to tell you, they should have called this, they should have called that, they should have called this, they should have called that. But that's not really how the process works. There's so many variables you're dealing with when you're calling a play. It's each decision affects the next decision. You're trying to think 3 moves ahead. Maybe your right tackle is a little banged up. Nobody knows he's a little banged up, but he's not able to run block moving right. There's so many details that you and I don't know. So it's tough to say, like, what would you do different if I was the coach of the offense? But I think the one thing that the Niners offense is missing in general right now is involvement from Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. And now this was the first week back. They're still integrating Christian McCaffrey, and then they're obviously integrating Elijah Mitchell, who missed a few weeks. But George Kittle, having only one catch in this game, and he blocked terrific. He blocks terrific in every game. And Debo Samuel having a couple of runs early in the game, but then having that first catch, which was a screenplay, and Debo looked like how Debo always looks when you throw him a screen. And how many times have we seen the Niners throw Debo a screen much earlier in the game? So I thought that was a little weird for him to get his first reception, with 4 minutes left in the third quarter of the game. So if there was one thing I would say is different, and it's only different to this game, to be honest, I thought the game was very much just run game, run game, run game, quick game to Ayuk. I wish they would go back to calling some of the bread and butter plays that we've seen them call in years past to both Debo Samuel and George Kittle. I think they're both still the same caliber player they've always been, especially Kittle. I think Kittle is still just awesome. I just don't know why that he's kind of been shrunk down the um, totem pole on this team. Blue Heel, you're absolutely right. I do need a poster. If you have any suggestions, let me know. I've never been a big furniture decoration guy. I'm more about function than aesthetics. I don't really care usually how my room looks until I started watching myself on stream. And I'm like, wow, it looks really, really weird. Like, it looks like I'm in some sort of weird place with the white door, the white walls, and then the darkness because I have no central light in this room, and then the light just flashing on my face. Yeah, it looks odd. I gotta fix it up for sure. What is Shannon Sharp not wrong about? What did I miss? Dan R says, Vish, why do you think Mike McGlinchey hasn't been benched yet? He costs us plays. Defense has been attacking him all season with their best defender. Okay. The second part of this is, well, if you're an edge player, who would you rather rush against, Trent Williams or Mike McGlinchey, right? This is a no-brainer to me. Of course you would rather rush against Mike McGlinchey. Like, no offense to him, but Trent Williams is way better than him. I think he would admit that too. Why hasn't he been benched yet? I don't think it's really been like all negative. There's been a few positives there too. Again, this game, I find it tough to get on him. I kind of know who he is. I know what his strengths are. I know what his weaknesses are. And I think Khalil Mack's a hell of a player and a really tough matchup for Mike McGlinchey. And I think Khalil Mack is going to give Mike McGlinchey problems no matter what. So it's tough for me to say, like, okay, Mike McGlinchey, you really, really stink if you have, 6 different pass block reps that you got to block Khalil Mack. I think the biggest thing that worries me about Mike McGlinchey is I think he gets into his own head. And it's something I talked about. I don't know if it's the criticism. I don't know if he overthinks it, but everything with him seems so deliberate. If you see the way he talks, he just seems like an overthinker. Now, it's not fair for me to pass a judgment that way. I understand that, and it could be totally wrong, but it is what I'm perceiving about Mike McGlinchey when I view how he talks to the media, just how he reacts. Everything just feels like, he's just an overthinker. He's trying his hardest to do his best. It's just everything is so tight because he's so focused. He just doesn't want to mess up, and then he messes up. That's the impression I get from Mike McGlinchey. At this point, I don't think he's going to be benched. I don't really know if he needs to be benched, to be honest. But I do think that, what the Niners do with his contract upcoming is going to be one of the most interesting conversations in this offseason. If I had to guess, I think the Niners re-sign him. I don't know if that would be the correct decision right now. I haven't really thought about that. I would actually have to, go study Mike McGlinchey myself and then talk to a lot of people who know offensive line much better than me and have them give me their opinion and, help me out there because I'm not very good at watching offensive line. But it's definitely a conversation that we will be having throughout this offseason. But right now, I don't think that Dan R is out if they sign him. All right. If they sign him, you're out. I don't know. I just hear the way they talk about Mike McGlinchey. I don't know who else would really sign Mike McGlinchey. And Brian M brings up the second point. They don't really have draft picks to replace him. It's tough to find, starting right tackles outside of the first. It's tough to find tackles outside of the first 50, 60 picks in the draft. It's such a physically demanding position. You have to be so physically gifted to play the position that he might be a tough guy to replace. We'll see. Emiliano, excuse me. That was horrible pronunciation. I apologize for that. Asks, were there plays down the field to be had, or was that part of the playbook out of the window for this Chargers team that had vulnerabilities at defensive back? So I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch. But my immediate perception is that this game felt really similar, and for obvious reasons, because schematically it's the same defense. It was the same approach to how they approached the Rams, right? Run the ball, all quick game, get the ball out of Garoppolo's hands. And it was a similar game plan as last week. They're playing a very similar defense. And Garoppolo, to his credit, executed 2 weeks in a row. He played very well. This is hilarious. If I could get that poster, I do think my wall would be decked out. I'd have to ask Blake if he could wear that Victorian suit so that I could get that poster up, though. But my wall would be real jazzed up. Hello, ask me how's the work life. It's good. It's definitely been an adjustment for sure. I'm still learning how to adult, but because this is the first time I'm actually like living truly alone, so I'm a work in progress in terms of the adulting. Definitely a work in progress, I would say. But I would also like to say that I'm getting better at it every day. I don't know if I really am, but it's just something I tell myself. So that's kind of that. Faith and Hope Ministry Media asks, what would it take for the 49ers to move to first place in the division? I don't think it really takes much other than beating Seattle on that Thursday night game. The Arizona game I think gets a little tougher if Colt McCoy plays. No, I'm joking, but he played well today. But yeah, for the Niners to be in the first place in the division, to me, it's going to come down to that Thursday night in Seattle, which is really tough scheduling for the Niners. I don't love that they have to go Thursday night at Seattle. I do love that they at least stay on the West Coast if they're going on the road Thursday night. I think playing at Seattle is as hard as it's always been. No matter how good the team is, it's always hard to go in there and win. And I do think the team is good this year as well. So I think it's going to be a tough place to play. But that's what I think. That's what the Niners need to do, in my opinion, to be first place in this division. Blue Heel asked, do you think McGlinchey's playing hurt? Maybe. I mean, I'd have to imagine he's not fully recovered, right? A torn quad is a very serious injury. Weston Richburg came back from that injury, but I do remember not in another sport, right? It was the injury that it ended Charles Barkley's career, kind of ended Tony Parker's career, though he went to Charlotte after, made a lot of money, but he wasn't the same player he was on the Spurs. So, yeah, it's a very serious injury. I'd have to imagine. Greg Plattner brings up the point. I wonder if he would be 100% again. He tore his quad completely off the bone. I mean, we have to consider these things when we talk about it. It's the reality of the situation. It's very tough to recover from these serious injuries. It's not always fair to these athletes to, act like they're playing 100% and all of that. We don't know these things. And so it's tough to speculate. I don't know if it's exactly fair to speculate on somebody else's body like that, but I do think it's something that needs to be taken into account to try and evaluate all of this in the most fair and objective and unbiased way possible. Now, no matter what, and I'm 100% included in this, there's going to be some bias. There's going to be some lack of objectivity. It's going to happen. Just got to try and be as honest as possible about it. I try to keep it that way. I know I'm biased sometimes. I know I can't help it. It's the fan in me. I still love this team. I love all the players on this team. I love the coaching staff. So I try to keep it as real as possible, but I know that, I'm not always able to do that to the best of my ability. J. Cruz 49ers says, what do we need to do to start punching the ball into the end zone instead of settling for so many field goals? Seems like we outgain possession and opposition in yards, time possession in plays. Seems like a big flaw for Kyle. Yeah, it seems to be a Kyle Shanahan theme. I do think red zone is a place where the quarterback makes such a difference because margin is so low. In the red zone, right? You're talking about a lot tighter windows. Defenses are able to kind of play the run and the pass. They're able, it just becomes really hard to score in the red zone. It helps if you have a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes, guys that are threats to run it in with their legs, guys that'll make plays off schedule, and they'll just make ridiculous, you know, throws that humans shouldn't make. Nothing against Garoppolo, he's just not gifted that way. So I think that's one thing when it comes to red zone offense in general. Usually the good quarterbacks have the good red zone offenses. It's just how things work. In terms of the Niners, it's themselves. I think more aggressive fourth down play calling is what they need in the red zone, to be honest. I don't understand settling field goals. We're going to talk about Shanahan today. There was one thing that was very bizarre. And it was that field goal he took at the end. I didn't really get making the game 22-16. I thought, taking time off, going for it on fourth down. I would have run it on fourth down, let the clock run, and then, or throw it. You have the change of possession that's going to stop the clock. You maybe take 5-6 seconds off the clock. Now you have, 57 seconds, and they got to go 96 or 97 yards at their own 3-yard line with your pass rush. I would trust them to close it out. I understand why which contradicts what I said earlier because I said I didn't understand it. But I guess I understand why he kicked the field goal. I thought that was a spot he could have gone for it. I definitely thought the first one inside the 5, he should have gone for it, but he didn't. But I definitely think more aggressive fourth down play calling is something that would be nice for sure. Fernando Bristolise, appreciate the donation again. Thank you so much. Says, I used to see you with Grant. Cool to see you got your own channel. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think most people used to see me with Grant. It's, not, he's the one who really helped me get a platform, get a following, all of that. There's no secret to that. I am definitely thankful to Grant from that standpoint. And I thought that was a great show, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people still miss it on Mondays. I got a new show on Mondays too. Again, tomorrow I'll be live with Rob Stats Guerrera and the Niners Nation YouTube channel. Under review with Stats and Vish. We've been kind of doing it for the last couple weeks. It's a show that we've just started together. Go a long way if you could tune into that show. I think it's a pretty good show on Mondays. It's similar in a lot of ways to the format of Mondays with Vish, but it's obviously a little different because Rob and I have different chemistry compared to Grant and I. But if you would like to see that, it's there too. I think I'm going to take 2 more questions and then call it a night. The tough thing about night games is that, it's already 11:40 Central Time and I do have to get to sleep. Otherwise, I would go longer because the conversation in here is fantastic. I appreciate the support that every single one of you have given me. I know it was a real rocky start when I got on streaming. I was a little distracted at the beginning. And, there were a couple of rounded answers as there always are with me. I go back and watch every one of these streams and I do make note of some of the things that you guys do tell me. And I appreciate you guys giving me that feedback because, I'm new to this. It's not something I do maybe a lot of. I don't get to stream as much as I would like, so I don't get the same practice I maybe want at it. So I try to, it helps me a lot actually when you guys give me feedback. Even if you think you're giving it in a harsh way, it actually helps me because I'm able to, internalize it and give you a better production of this stream, which is I think what we're all looking for together. We like communicating about football together. But either way, again, I just went on a tangent, but please like, subscribe, share, and comment down below, why you're excited that the Niners won. And then what do you think the Niners need to do to make a stretch run over the second half of the season? I didn't want to take this question from Brandon Hill. He says, Debo is such an immense talent, but why do the 49ers use him in such a way that, but do the 49ers use him in such a way that he's worth $25 million a year? I didn't miss him too much against the Rams and was surprised. I think they do. Missing him against the Rams, I thought that was a product of who they got, right? They got another special freak show to join Debo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. I think they would have definitely missed him against the Rams if Christian McCaffrey wasn't there. Debo Samuel to me is still a very special player. I know a lot of people have gotten soured on him with what happened in the offseason. And then he had a 3-week stretch where I thought he didn't play well. I didn't think he played well in the Carolina game. And then he didn't look like Debo versus Atlanta or Kansas City to me. Thought that was a product maybe of the hamstring. I thought Debo looked good tonight. I thought he looked good tonight. I know it was a small sample, very few touches, but I thought he looked explosive. I thought he was making people miss. I thought he ran real hard. I thought Debo looked very good. And I do think he is worth $25 million. I think that, as this team grows together, gains some chemistry, and they start balancing out how this target share is going to go because there's so many weapons. If they can sequence together, 2-3 weeks of Debo, Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Kittle, Juszczyk, all these guys playing together, I think we'll have a very different feeling about this offense. That's what that's what I think. J Cruz 49er asks, how realistic is the Super Bowl squad with this? How realistic is the Super Bowl with this squad right now? Seems like we can't get out of our own way. Love the show. Appreciate your support. I love interacting with you. You always ask questions on here. I feel like I answer a couple of your questions every stream, so I enjoy that. How realistic is a Super Bowl win? I mean, what do you mean by realistic, right? Is it possible? Hell yeah. But I think it's also possible for 20 other teams to win the Super Bowl this year. If we're talking just on odds, I think there's possibility. In terms of how possible it is, which is what you mean by realistic, I would say they got as good a chance as any team that's not the Philadelphia Eagles, the Buffalo Bills, or the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are the favorite. They're my favorite. They're who I picked to win before the season, so there's some bias there too. But I would say that you could put them in the conversation with anybody else. I mean, it's still a team that's top 10 in both DVOA for offense and defense. Pretty impressive number. El Zorro. Wow, that was two big donations right there. I really appreciate it. I guess I'll stick around and take a few more questions because I saw a couple of real good questions come in there in the bottom as well. But El Zorro Senpai, I don't know if Senpai is reference to The Office, but one of my favorite shows ever. So I'm gonna assume it is, and be very happy that you called yourself Senpai and said, "Great to see you again," and we'll be watching your shows on Monday. Really appreciate it. Hope to see all of you guys there on Monday tomorrow. Looking forward to it. David Velas, really appreciate it. Josh Putnam has a small YouTube channel and does great film reviews. I don't know who this is, but I'll go check it out. He always shows how Kyle sets up plays where he ran weeks, months, years, even years ago. They're always shots plays. Jimmy G rarely hits or even attempts those throws. I think that's something that all of us have talked about over the course of time. I do think that's been the case. I don't get the feeling that that's the case this year specifically. Now, Josh Putnam might have a difference of opinion, and I definitely respect that difference of opinion. I'll go check out his channel tomorrow morning probably and see what he's got to offer. I'm sure he's got great stuff. But this year, I don't feel that this is exactly the case. I think Jimmy Garoppolo has actually played pretty solid football this year, to be honest. In years past, I've been hard on him. I think I'm hard on him in general, but I'm also, I I guess I try to call it as I see it. If that leads me to being hard on him, sometimes positive on him, I understand that. I just try to evaluate his play for what it was in that individual moment. Right now, I think he's playing very good football. It's tough for me to criticize. He's playing very efficient. He's taking care of the football. He's very accurate at the moment. He's made a few off schedules that have been huge in the course of the game. He's made also a few big time throws, right? If you look at his last two off schedule plays, he's got the play to McLeod and the play to Dwelly against the Rams. Those are two huge plays. So really appreciate the donation, David, but that would be my take on what you had to say right there. eBay asks, why did the 49ers run more outside zone since the Chargers have been weakened that the last couple weeks? The Niners haven't really featured outside zone as part of their run game this entire season. I don't even think they run outside zone 50% of the time. That's just me giving you my estimate just by watching. I wouldn't say it's 50% of the time. I would say they probably run more gap than outside. I think their gap to zone splits, they probably run more gap now. Now, I don't know what the actual numbers are. I'll look up those splits a little bit later. That's just my visual eye test guess. I don't know about this game because I can't really diagnose always what run they're running when I'm watching it on broadcast. It takes me a little bit of time. I'm a little bit slower than a few others. But I will definitely check that out and see what was the cause for this game, eBay, and try to give you a better answer over the course of the week. So I'm gonna take one more question. I just brought this up because I think it's hilarious. I feel like every time somebody new comes here, they just got something to say about Mike McGlinchey. It's amazing to me. The Niners just won a game, and everybody wants to come here and talk about Mike McGlinchey. I think it says a lot about how Niners fans feel about Mike McGlinchey, and I'll leave it at that. Frank Saladivar. Let me try that again. Frank Saladivar. Please let me know if I butchered that. I'm really sorry if I did. As someone who grew up, with a name that's not the easiest to pronounce, I totally understand the frustration of people butchering your names. So I really apologize if I did, but I think I got that right. But he says, is it possible that a brilliant person might think themselves into stupidity? Absolutely. Happens all the time. I think overthinking is part of it. I do think Shanahan is brilliant. I know this is referring to him, and I'm someone that really thinks he's that smart. But I do think that doesn't mean he's perfect, right? And that's where I think the conversation is great. He can be a great coach. He can be a brilliant play caller. I believe both of those things. A lot of people don't believe he's a great coach. I do. But I also don't think that means he's above reproach and he's a flawless coach. That doesn't make sense to me. He has his issues. He sometimes overthinks stuff. He sometimes has issues managing the game. It's all a work in progress. Coaches grow the same way players grow. He's 42 years old. He's only 6 years into doing this as a head coach. He's also going to grow over the course of time as he keeps doing this. He's going to get better. I think he has improved in some areas. I think he's been quite rigid. In others, I would like to see him, expand his analytics, analytics, or not expand his use of analytics, but maybe use the analytics a little bit more to go for it on fourth down. Now, that's also me. I have to give perspective. I'm a numbers guy. I like the analytics. So to me, I like the analytically sound decision. Now, not everybody likes that, and I understand that, but that's something I would like him to do. But definitely, I don't think it's a case of I do think it's possible that he's a brilliant person that can think himself into stupidity. It happens. He's not perfect, and I don't think anybody is really perfect within this business. We all know that nobody's perfect within life, but I do think sometimes the conversation becomes, well, if I'm critical of this person, I'm immediately hating on this person. I'm not appreciating this person, which isn't exactly the case. You just have to be honest, in my opinion, about what it is. And I think Shanahan is a very good coach, but his flaws are also pretty obvious to all of us. All right. This will be the real last question. I just want to put up this comment. This is of my boy Jamal Armstrong. He goes on Niner Nate's Nonsense with him, Kevin, and Nate. Make sure you guys watch that show. That's an absolute banger. Nate and Kevin are two of the most passionate people I've heard talk about the Niners, and then Jamal is as smart as anybody when it comes to talking about the Niners. But he says the Chargers were very thin at defensive tackle and got thinner throughout the game, and they wanted to hash them through the middle of the field and did. Exactly. That's the point towards the guy who's talking about the outside zone, and it's a great point. Thank you, Jamal. But Jamal says, my bad, a bunch of typos. Totally okay. But guys, I do have to pop off for the night. It's getting late here. I am in the central time zone. I'm not like you lucky West Coasters. I am a big fan of the West Coast time on Sundays. Like, you guys are so, you have no idea how lucky you are that you get to kind of wake up and start your day with football. 10 o'clock football is amazing. And then you get to go and your day ends and you still have a little bit of time to chill, right? Like, the adrenaline, it's so hard to go to sleep for me after a football game, especially after a Niners game. Like, I don't know what happens. I'm really just sitting on my couch and watching, but I get too excited. And when they win, it's hard. But I appreciate all of your support. Please like, subscribe, share. Thank you all for watching, and I will be back soon. Catch me tomorrow on the Niners Nation YouTube channel live with Stats Guerrera. It's going to be a great show. Hopefully, I'll watch the film by then and have a better opinion on all of these things. As always, guys, please like, subscribe, and I will see you next time.